The problem is, when the parasympathetic nervous system jumps in before the sympathetic nervous system, what you've got is freeze. You have this burst of energy, but your brain is forcing you to stay still. And that's how freezing works. It is natural, and it is not a character failure.
Coming to you from the 80/20 Conflict Management Headquarters in Edmonton, Alberta, this is the Timeline of Self-Defense with your host, Randy King.
What is up, Internet? Welcome to the Timeline of Self-Defense podcast. Yeah, it's a little podcast. We've just stolen the pacing of a late-night talk show because, let's be honest, safety tips go down a lot easier in bite-sized pieces. Everything you hear on the show is built off my model from my upcoming book, The Timeline of Self-Defense Before, During, and After Violence, coming out May 5th, 2026 from YMAA Publishing. Each week, we bring on experts, coaches, and survivors of violence to break down the timeline. What to do before anything happens, how to survive during, and how to deal with the after. If you want the full interviews with all 10 of my questions, or you want to book me for a keynote, workshop, or self-defense seminar, just head to randykinglive.com. You will find everything you need there. Socials, booking info, and even free access to my 6-hour online course on boundary setting. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps way more than you think. All right, enough talk. Let's get to the show. It's time for Red Flags and Reality. Welcome back to Red Flags and Reality, the part of the show where we take the headlines you might scroll past and turn them into lessons that can actually keep you safer. Tonight, we're in the during stage of the timeline, the moment when everything goes sideways and you've got seconds to make choices that matter. Our first story comes to us from Germany. In July, passengers on a high-speed train in southern Germany faced a nightmare. A man suddenly pulled out a hammer and started swinging. 4 people were hit before police could stop him. But what stood out wasn't just the attack, it was how people reacted. One rider threw his bag to block the blows, another used luggage to distract the attacker. Then, a small group shouted directions, warning others and helping police track the subject. The key takeaway here? They didn't freeze. They moved. When you can't run, teamwork is your best weapon. You don't need to be brave, you just need to be useful. Shout short commands. You call 911. You grab his arm. You move that way. Big, simple actions beat frozen silence every single time. And if you're alone, it's your job to buy seconds. Barriers, duck, move offline, throw something. The goal isn't to win, it's to survive long enough to escape. Our second story is all about chaos in the skies. Let's face it, air travel is getting rougher. This year, a man on a packed flight attacked a woman mid-air. No warning, no escape. Just yelling, panic, and nowhere to go. A flight attendant jumped in first, using her serving tray to shield the victim. Passengers then followed, tackling the man until the plane could land. The footage of this event is messy, arms, bags, chaos, but it shows what real violence looks like in a tight space. On a plane, everything around you is a tool. Armrests, belts, blankets, trays, they all work. Use them to protect your head, block space, or push somebody back. If you're not the one fighting, help others move, keep the aisle clear, or call for help. In tight places, coordination beats combat. Don't worry about perfect technique, focus on keeping people safe and working together. Our third story tonight comes from Amsterdam. In March, Amsterdam's busiest Dam Square turned into chaos when a man started stabbing random people. 6 people were injured before bystanders tripped the person and held him until police arrived. Videos of this event show pure confusion. People dropping phones, others frozen in shock. But a few nearby tourists did something different. One stuck out a leg to trip the attacker, another used a cafe chair to block him, and a third yelled for help in 2 languages to guide the police in. The lesson here, even crowds can freeze, or they can flow. Freezing helps the attacker, flow makes it harder for them to keep going. If something breaks out in a crowd, even small actions matter. Yelling clear directions, moving others, or blocking a path. If you choose to step in, keep it simple. Trip, push, block, then back off. You're not trying to fight here, you're trying to interrupt. Those few seconds of chaos can be the difference between 6 victims and 16. Lastly, we have our study spotlight. The freeze isn't failure. Science now backs what we've all felt. Freezing isn't cowardice, it's biology. When your body senses danger, your heart rate can actually drop while your muscles lock up. That's your brain pausing to decide what to do next. To us, it feels like forever, but in reality, it's just a second. Use that second, look around. Where's the exit? Who else is near? What can you grab? Then move. Step sideways, yell, or cover your head. You don't need to be fearless, you just need to restart your system. Once you start moving, the freeze is over and your brain can finally catch up. In closing, every single one of these stories tonight show us the same thing. When violence starts, simple actions save lives. On a train, on a plane, or in the middle of a crowd, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of preparation. Remember, keep your command short, your movements simple, and your goal clear. Survive the moment and get to safety. You don't need to be a superhero to do this, you just need to move first. Now, let's get to the show. If you think self-defense starts when the fists fly, tonight's guest will respectfully disagree and change how you move through the world. Faith Roswell is a creator of Armour for Life, a program focused on the before part of violence, attention, boundaries, and behavior cues that make predators shop somewhere else. A former international model who helped put a series of abusers behind bars, Faith blends psychology, sociology, and practical street sense into a system you can use the moment you step out the door. Now, let's get to the interview. All right, Faith, let's get into the question. So, number one, in a threatening situation, many people talk about fight, flight, freeze. You've said freezing is natural and explainable. Can you walk us through what's happening in that type of freeze?
Absolutely. So the term fight or flight was coined way back in 1915, but freeze wasn't really added until the 1970s, when a scientist worked out that the deer in headlights effect was a fear response and that it also applied to human beings. So we've actually got a lot of catching up to do when it comes to freeze. Now, when you feel threatened, your brain reacts with a chain reaction. When someone flicks something in front of your face, you are naturally going to blink. That's not something you can control. That is your brain forcing your eyes to close in response to the threat. So when we perceive a threat, the amygdala, which is responsible for perceiving fear, sends a signal to the hypothalamus, and that's what regulates your body and brain chemistry. Now, that then stimulates the adrenal glands to release stress hormones like adrenaline. Now, that all happens in a split second. You don't have much control over this happening. Now, this triggers two parts of your nervous system, and they compete for attention. So you've got the sympathetic nervous system. That is action, burst of energy, forward or backward. And we call that fight or flight. And then the parasympathetic nervous system happens after that. That's how it calms your body down after a threat happens. It keeps you still. The problem is when the parasympathetic nervous system jumps in before the sympathetic nervous system, what you've got is freeze. You have this burst of energy, but your brain is forcing you to stay still. And that's how freezing works. It is natural and it is not a character failure.
When someone's under threat, how much time do people actually have to make decisions? And how do you teach them to even use the fractions of a second effectively?
That depends very much on what the specific situation is. There's a hell of a difference between if you're in a bar fight and someone is giving it all the big I am, is what we say in the UK, or if someone is intending to mug you, or if somebody is intending to actually threaten your life. You could have any number of seconds. And often, a lot of the time, an attack is a surprise, which means you've probably got a fraction of a second. And in that situation, my usual advice, unless you have your life threatened every single day, you don't know what you're going to do. So my advice is usually if someone comes bursting out of the bushes like Jurassic Park, clever girl out the side, you fight for your life. You do anything you possibly can to fight for your life because that's all that you've got to deal with in that situation. If you've already spotted a threat, if now let's say we've got the guy in the park, the one that's following you, imaginary man in the park, you've probably got longer than a fraction of a second. You can then maybe a few seconds and you can decide. Because you can use fight, flight, freeze. You can use flight, where can I go? And by this point, if you've noticed someone following you, you should already have been looking, where can I go? Where am I heading to? Fight, step forward. Do the Kubrick stare, put your chin down, look up, or freeze, couple of seconds, wait to see what they're going to do. Some of them, if they think they're perceiving enough of the threats, they'll go or they'll come forward. And that still gives you a fraction of a second to go, now I'm going to fight for my life.
Have you personally been in a situation where your mental training kicked in during a threat? And what did you notice in your own head and body moment to moment?
I have. I was followed. Now, I was very, very tired. I was on my way back actually from filming something. I had a massive suitcase and a backpack weighing me down. It was a Sunday night and my little town was very, very quiet. So I don't know how long this man was following me. He was on a scooter and he had a mask. Now, if I'd noticed earlier, I might have been able to walk to the hotel, which was actually on my route home. But I had not been following my own advice, which was knowing where the 24-hour places are to put myself in a situation where I could get out. So what I found myself faced with was a line of houses and an open, empty car park of a supermarket that was not open. Now, it was well lit, so what I did was I got to the corner and he was right there in the corner waiting for me, right up in my face. So I swung my suitcase round to cause a blockage between him and me, and he then went off into the supermarket. Now, the problem was, to get home, I had to walk through an empty, dark park. So there was no way that I was actually going to take that turn. I didn't want to get in a situation where I've got nothing around me. It's dark. I don't know what he wants. I don't know. Does he want to just get off on intimidating me? Does he want to steal something I have? Does he want to kill me? I don't know. So I got into the supermarket car park because it is open, it is empty, there is plenty of space. He would have to physically come into my space and I've got anywhere I can to run or fight or do anything, and it can be seen from the road. Now, this was a very empty road, Sunday night, very quiet. But I'd got myself somewhere where I couldn't be backed into a corner, and that's when I noticed he was starting to hang back. And I thought, okay. And this is where, as I said earlier, my voice slightly let me down here because I went, I'm going to need you to give me some space. And of course, when you're on the way home, you're imagining, you're projecting, you're saying something considerably more badass. But at the time, what I'd done was face him, put a block between me and him, and tell him, get away. And while, yes, that fear was coming, I also didn't have any battery on my phone. So I had no options other than what I did. And yes, I could feel the adrenaline, but that thing that gave me confidence was him starting to hold back. And he sped past me and he went off down an alley and off he went. And I waited for a couple of people that were walking down that road, luckily. I would otherwise, if there hadn't been anyone, I'd have gone to the hotel. I'd have gone back on myself to the hotel. But they walked me back to the turning where my home was. I got in, and that's when I started to analyze myself. Because of knowing all these tips in advance, I was able to recover in a much shorter period of time and then start to analyze, okay, what can I do next? Right, another time, speak from the diaphragm. Another time, do this. But you never know what's going to happen at any given time. You never know how your body's going to react. But if you're able to defend yourself, to do anything, you can build on that. Anything at all.
Critics sometimes say non-physical tactics are fine until someone hits you. How do you integrate mental, verbal, and physical responses so people can pivot smoothly when things escalate?
I'm sure someone said, yeah, everyone has a plan until you get hit. So yeah, it's not the answer that everyone wants. I like to be very pessimistic so that I'm not taken by surprise. Because if you're taken by surprise, that can scramble your brain, leaving you to work out, well, what just happened? What you're firstly having to deal with, oh my God, I'm being attacked. And that's not something you want to be shocked by while then trying to think, okay, how can I get out of that? Because all this while, someone's attacking you. So if you go in expecting the worst, you go in expecting to get hit, even while you're hoping and aiming to de-escalate, you're less likely to be surprised if you are hit. Because it's, oh no, not this. Especially if you've not had much experience in physical fighting. You can't expect to be James Bond and then beat yourself up when you aren't. So do what you can to survive and analyze later. If you need to go back to, say, a physical self-defense class, there's been some amazing ones recommended right here on this podcast, then go for it, do it. But in the moment, do what you can, fight for your life. You can analyze that later, work out where you went maybe wrong, where you could use some improvement, and then go for what you need.
Next question. Stress narrows the perception. What warning signs of tunnel vision should people watch for, and how do you coach them to counteract that in the moment?
If I use the Jurassic Park example, that Muldoon is so fixated on the danger in front of him that he gets taken by surprise when the danger comes from the side. So if you are fixating on the person ahead of you or the threat that you think is coming, you're ignoring every other signal. And if that's a situation where you think someone might mug you, they may or may not have a friend that's going to come from the side. So an exercise that I do to help try and prevent tunnel vision in a situation like this is in advance, just as almost a meditation exercise, is to tell people to name 5 things they can see in the head, 4 things they can hear, 3 things they can touch, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. Now, in a stress situation, in a fight, that might not necessarily be the smartest thing to meditating, but this will teach you how to pay attention to your surroundings. And if you start to realize you are so focused on one person, maybe you stop hearing sounds, maybe you stop noticing things around you, then make the conscious decision to start. Because fixating on one person's not going to help you if the trouble comes from another angle. Also, I think it might have been Mr. Rogers in an American TV show who said, look for the helpers. If you're fixating on that one person, if you're fixating on the threat, that stops you from fixating on the helpers. It stops you from looking for who could be of assistance. Is there a light on in someone's window? Does that sign over there say 24-hour open? So while, yes, fixating on the person that might be either ready to attack or that you don't trust, always look for the helpers as well, because that can help prevent tunnel vision and give you some optimism too.
How do you train mental agility so someone can adapt mid-flow when the script changes?
In general, an attack is going to be unpredictable unless you are extremely well trained by rote in something like, unless you've had, say, military training where you've had that drilled into you all day, every day of your life. And I'm sure someone on the internet is going to say, we don't have that drilled in. That's not how it is. But I think someone can understand the spirit of what I'm saying, that unless you have had that as your sole focus of preparation for a very long time, even professional martial artists get surprised. Even people who fight in a ring for a living can have an opponent surprise them. And they've gone in knowing there's going to be a fight. They've gone in knowing that there's going to be some degree of unpredictability. So prepare in advance for a fight or a threat without trying to predict exactly what's going to happen minute by minute. You want to start looking for a way out and some distance as soon as you feel threatened. You want to look for something that could be put in front of you, like a chair or like my suitcase, or if things escalate, how to get out early before that does. But in general, if a fight's going to happen, you're probably not going to be able to predict what happens. So all you can do is the best you can in the moment.
When grabbed, pushed, or struck, how do you prioritize which escape or counter to use, mentally and physically, under pressure?
So this is a situation, it depends why you're being attacked, because there's a huge difference between posturing because you've got something to prove to your friends, and predatory, where you're actually intending to harm somebody's life. So I'm thinking right now of footage, it's protest footage, of a woman who was grabbed from behind around the neck, and she stood still and flashed the peace sign. Now, if someone's trying to use you to prove a point and give a show of strength, in my opinion, that's a good move. You've got the higher ground, and they can't escalate without looking like an absolute pine cone. That said, if someone's trying to rob you, that's very, very different. They're likely to go if you give them what you're after. This is not worth your life. I think some of our previous guests mentioned about what is worth your life. Drop it. Drop it and run. That said, if something is a threat to your life, they don't want to steal something. They're not throwing their weight around. They're fighting for your life and your body. I was really happy to hear in one of your episodes about the wrist grab being very overused. And I didn't know the history of the wrist grab, fighting with a sword thing. But in my opinion, knowing how to break a grip is actually incredibly important in that situation where someone's after your life. Because in general, people, even if they've got you with their arms, they're going to control you with their hands. So for me, if I've been grabbed and I believe my life is in danger, break the person's thumb, because they have got one hand down now. The thumb is the weakest part of the hand. Break that. If you can break the grip, that's something they can't use. Now, that might be a little controversial among certain self-defense educators, but that, for me, as a lay person who is not necessarily years of combat trained, if I believe my life is in danger, they've got to use the hands. So make it impossible for them to do it.
How do you bake in fallback strategies or exits, recognizing when you can't win and need to disengage? What signals tell you that retreat is the safest play?
We've got a saying in the UK called all mouth and no trousers. That's someone that is performing to their audience, posturing. They're giving it all the mouth, but actually they don't really mean anything by it. Again, think pro wrestling. Look at me, I'm going to get you. But the second that body language starts to close into their body and they're speaking in monosyllables, that's when you prepare to fight. Because just like we have the fight, flight, freeze, and our brains start to shut down, so do theirs. That's when they can't give you the, I'm going to do this, blah, 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 blah. They start speaking in grunts. That, prepare to fight. Now, no one wants to engage with a posturing idiot. It's tedious. So if you're trying to de-escalate, it's time to retreat before someone starts grunting at you. Now, coming into your personal space is another. Leaning forward, looking at their eyes. Are they looking at you? Because in general, someone that's trying to intimidate you, that's making a big show of it, is going to stare straight into your eyes and give you the psycho look. But if they're actually preparing to fight, a lot of them will start to scan your body. They're looking for weaknesses. And this is generally something that they can't control. This is not something they're doing deliberately. The eye contact, they're doing that. They're forcing that gesture. But once they start to scan your body as well, that's when they're looking for weaknesses. Chin thrusting as well. Someone that's sticking the chin out going, is someone that's showing anger, but that's not necessarily something they're doing deliberately. And it leads me to a trio that I point out about threat spotting. It's slightly before a fight, but I use this in the same way we say fight, flight, freeze. I use feet, thrust, disgust. Feet. Are they pointing at you? Is their attention on you? On its own, they might just like your t-shirt. But if they're also thrusting that chin in anger, that's something maybe you're annoying them, but just keep an eye out. But when that final thing comes into play, disgust, you see it on a child all the time because they don't hide their expression. The corners of the mouth come down, a wrinkling of the nose. But if you see that slight nose wrinkle and those corners come down a little on an adult who's trying to hide it, look at, especially, for example, if you're coming from somewhere like a pride march, or maybe you are in a relationship with someone who is from a different ethnic background. Now, if you're looking at a feet pointing to you and a chin thrust and an expression of disgust, I would get out. I would get out right away and I would look for help. So that's my little trio of this person probably means me harm. They might not be about to attack me, but whatever's going on in their head is not kind to me.
Once an incident begins, people can get stuck on a single plan. How do you train continuous scanning, reevaluation, and shifting tactics as the situation evolves?
So this is back to everyone has a plan until they get hit. So the thing with evaluating is what is your goal? Because most people's goal is not to take down their opponent, because unless you're in an actual boxing match, then you're wanting to get out. Keep that goal in mind. You want to get out, and also you probably want to get help. So looking around, as soon as you've got some space, you need to then make the decision. Do you want to come forward and try and get this person away from you more, or is it safe to run? Now, having something that you can put in front of you, whether that's your backpack, whether it's a coat, literally anything that will cause something to be between you and your attacker, great. But evaluating as soon as you think it's safe to run, it's working out how long you've got. Is this person put off or hurt enough? Or are you too much bother? You want to be too much bother. Are they too much bother to pursue? Or are you not? And that's something you might not know because at the end of the day, again, a fight can be unpredictable. They might have a lot of speed, they might be faster than you. Maybe they're being very, very relentless. But I would keep the goal in mind of you want to get out, and any tactic you can that can put firstly distance between you and them. Even if finding help and getting truly out feels impossible, take it one step at a time. Distance, put them off, be too much trouble, and then try and find a way out, and always observe for are they coming? Because if they are, you don't want to keep running, you want to turn and face.
When things suddenly go from bad to worse, a weapon appears or multiple attackers appear, what mental strategies keep someone from shutting down at that escalation point?
Now, this is funnily enough when the brain's trying to help you. We say about fight, flight, and freeze, we say that this is something that makes our brain a little bit stupid. It's not always rational, but at the end of the day, our brain is trying to protect us. And when you go into a fear response, that's trying to help you. And a lot of the time, using that force to fight or to flee or freezing to take stock of the situation, you can learn to try and use whatever attributes that, because most people will have at least one that they tend to go to. For me, I'm often flight or freeze. So working out what you're likely to do, and you can work that out before a fight happens, what you're probably going to do. For me, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to flee headlong into a situation, I would probably be most likely to jump straight in the river, and most attackers are very unlikely to come. By the way, that makes far more sense if you take into account I live on a canal boat, so I am actually near a river. For somebody else in another situation, they might have another option that they would take. But in general, fear can do incredible things to your brain, and working out what you're likely to do, because you might not know your attackers, but you're probably going to know yourself. So working out what you're most likely to do, and then using that as a springboard for just maybe moving one step ahead. What can you do next? Keep asking yourself, what next? What next? Now, if a weapon appears, sometimes all you can do is try and fight back, because you can't de-escalate something like that if someone genuinely wants to harm you. And then it's a case of, are they trying to rob you? In which case, it's not worth your life. It's not worth your life. Drop, like a character in a video game, drop whatever is of value to them and get out. If you're someone that's likely to fight, then use that. Target the hand, target whatever you can. It's not predictable. Life isn't, and sometimes the monster wins. And I hate to be pessimistic on that account, but sometimes that's the case. And we have to take that into account. But in terms of mental strategies to stop someone completely shutting down. Know yourself and how you're likely to react, and then look at what you can do next, what you might do next. That's probably the best advice that I can give in that situation. And then I'd also say listen to more of Common Sense Self-Defense podcasts to find out what some of the people who are very much combat trained would also do, because you can't have physical self-defense without mental self-defense. You've got to have the two that work in tandem. I can take you so far, and the people that specialize in the physical side can take you the rest of the way, or vice versa. They can take you so far and I can take you the rest of the way. But you've got to use the two of them together.
All right, Faith, if you could give the listeners one or two takeaways from this whole episode, what is something, if they don't remember anything else from the show, that you want them to remember?
Self-defense doesn't always look like self-defense until you have to use it. A lot of what you're learning, a lot of what you're practicing and doing, especially when you're stressed, or especially in terms of observance and looking at the world around you and learning how to spot when something just doesn't quite feel right, can buy you seconds. And it's only often after something has happened you'll realize that you learned how to defend yourself, that this was something that you picked up and were able to use in the moment. So self-defense, it doesn't always look like how you expect self-defense to look like until you've used it and gone, I did it. I did this thing. I learned this thing. That's something I think is really important.
Let's wrap this all up with takeaways. Here are my takeaways from today's episode with Faith Roswell. First, freezing isn't failure. It's how your brain gathers information before action. When you feel locked up, use that second to scan. Where's the exit? Who's near you? What can you grab? Then take one small step or yell one clear word to move past the freeze. Next, simple beats fancy, especially in the middle of chaos. On a bus, a plane, or in a crowd, clear basic actions work best. Shout short commands, make space, grab tools around you, and move towards safety. The goal isn't to win the fight, it's to end the danger. Third, watch the shift from show to go. People who posture and yell aren't always the ones who attack. But when someone's words shrink into grunts and their eyes start scanning your body instead of your face, that's a cue. That means it's about to get real quick. That's when you need to create distance or act first. Fourth, know your default move. Have one thing trained into your muscle memory. A quick step sideways, a forearm shield, a grip break. Under stress, your body won't invent something new. It will do what you've already practiced. This is why counter-assault training is so important. Next, your goal is always the same. Get out alive. Don't get stuck on pride or payback. To keep learning about how your mind and body react under pressure, check out Faith Roswell online. Her program, Armour for Life, focuses on the psychological side of self-defense. How to think clearly, read danger, and make better decisions when adrenaline hits. You can find her at faithroswell.co.uk or on all major platforms under @Armour for Life. Faith's content pairs perfectly with this phase of the timeline. It's about controlling your fear, not pretending you don't have it. If this episode helped you see violence in a new way, do me a favor. Like, share, subscribe, or leave a review. Then send this to somebody who needs it. Keep all that in mind. Stay alert, stay calm, stay safe, and remember, simple actions save lives. We'll see you next week.